My name is Gene Mays. I'm 45 years old. I currently live in North College Hill with my wife Tracy and son Jelani. I grew up in Avondale, Central Cincinnati. I always dreamed of being a professional basketball player. Everyone in the neighborhood always felt like I would be the one to make it out the neighborhood to play professional basketball. I was a very good student. When the rankings first came out at the beginning of my senior year, I was ranked #1 in terms of academics. In December of, I guess it was 1981, it was during my senior year, I arrived at school one morning and there was a guy smoking marijuana, and I began to smoke with him. And during the time we were smoking, there was an assistant principal that was watching. So we were caught smoking marijuana, and as a result of that, I was expelled from school. Not only was I expelled from school, but I was also kicked off the basketball team because it was right during the middle of basketball season. I was able to return to school after that semester and proceeded getting A's again, but I still was continuing to use drugs. After I graduated, I went to UC, received a partial academic scholarship. There were a few colleges looking at me in terms of basketball before that incident happened, and once that happened, they pretty much turned their back on me. Somewhere during that time, I had began to experiment with cocaine. At that point, using drugs just became the priority in my life, and so I had to figure out a way to support my habit that I had established. So at that point, I started selling drugs to support my habit. In 1988, I was convicted of trafficking in drugs. That's when it hit me that I had gotten myself involved in something that I was going to go to prison for. After being released from prison, my run-ins with the law were frequent. My disease had pretty much limited me to a 4-block radius. And it was at that point that I began to understand what this guy had told me in the penitentiary when he said incarceration was a state of mind. Because actually, I was more locked up at that point than I was inside the penitentiary. In '95, I was convicted of a drug abuse, and I thought that I was going back to the penitentiary. So my lawyer started applying for treatment in lieu of a sentence. After going to the penitentiary and being in the institutions and being faced with going back to the penitentiary, you would think that a person would have hit rock bottom. But the bottom line is that I wasn't through using. It was early October, and I was out there using, and I had gone to a crack house. I can remember walking on the street, and it was pouring down raining, thundering and lightning, and there were even the thoughts of suicide at that point. I was playing in my head, which bridge could I go jump off of? Ultimately, I found enough courage to go home. Just being out there with nowhere to go, that was my bottom. I didn't want to ever have to experience that again. So that was on October the 7th, 1997. And it was at that point that I became clean, and I haven't found it necessary to use drugs again. After I had stopped using that time, I decided that it was time to go out and try to get a job. There again, like I said, I had my son there. My significant other was working, and so I had to find somewhere to go, to help, support my son and to try to keep a roof over our head and pay some bills. So I went out and went to Aramark Uniform Services. So I kept working there from like 1997 2001. I wanted to go back to school, but I wanted to continue to earn money too because I had a family. And so I decided that I wanted to learn the electrical trade. I was told that I could apply to join this apprenticeship. Each apprenticeship consists of 12 standardized tests. My first year of the apprenticeship, I did something that had never been done before. And that was I scored 100% on all 12 tests. I kind of separated myself from the pack at that point. So after my first year, I was ranked #1 in our class. I had learned from a guy that had been in our local that maybe I needed to try to become employed with the city of Cincinnati, and that they had a civil service exam that they were going to give. Upon applying to take this civil service exam, you have to fill out an application. And I disclosed everything that, criminally that I had experienced on that application. So I received a letter saying that I had been accepted to take the civil service exam. And I passed. I actually interviewed with the Metropolitan Sewer District. And the interview went real well. And I just kind of laid it all out on the table, what my prior convictions were, and I was a different person now, and, I no longer lived that type of lifestyle. And at that point, I believe those convictions were probably around 12 to 13 years old. I was told that, probably not. I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks later, MSD offered the position. It was a contingent offer of employment, and I was told that it was contingent upon my background check and a urine test. And I knew at that point, that I didn't have any problem with taking a urine test because I had been clean, 10 years. So it was basically about the background check. So I asked the question with the female that had called me. I asked her about, my prior convictions and how long did they go back, with the background investigation. And she told me that they went back 7 years. I began to celebrate with my family. It was just a matter of waiting for the date for me to go take the physical and the urine test. I never received a call or the papers to set me up with that date to go take the physical and the urine test. So I ended up getting a letter from the Civil Service Commission telling me that they were going to pull that offer of employment, and they also were going to remove my name from that list of eligible workers. They said that they would have to pull my name as a result of my felony convictions. I really had looked forward to working for the city of Cincinnati, because we had already began to celebrate me getting this job, and it was a job in my field. It was very secure with excellent benefits, and I just thought that I could do well, in this position for myself and moving forward with my family. It was at that point that I kind of questioned, my rehabilitation. My son came to me and he asked me, he said, "Dad, why won't they hire you, man?" So it was at that point that I had to explain to him